Welcome to April and Debbie Dish the Truth on Weight Loss, where we share the raw, real, and sometimes messy truth about our weight loss journeys.
I am Debbie, a weight loss coach who lost 100 pounds and have been living in maintenance for 4 years.
And I'm April, a weight loss coach, currently down 75 pounds and continuing my journey to lose 100 more.
Together, we'll explore the ups, downs, and everything in between, showing you that lasting weight loss is possible no matter where you are on your path.
Yes. And today we're going to talk about that we are halfway through the year and it's a perfect time to pause, reflect, and realign your health goals, see what's been working, see what you want to maybe tweak for the next half of the year, and moving into June.
Mhm. My favorite part of you sharing what we are talking about is how you said realign. And it's not restarting. It's not
Mhm.
like redoing everything. It's just realigning by looking at what we've done and where we still wanna go. So I love that word choice.
Yeah, I think so. I think whenever we say starting over or I'm restarting, it's for me anyway. Everybody is different, different things, right? But for me to keep saying I'm restarting, it just sounds so defeating. Immediately my brain says, "Oh, I didn't do it, or I didn't finish it, or whatever, or I screwed up." And it's not that. It's kind of what we talk about persistence or resilience over the the strict definition of what people think consistency is. It's not necessarily that you missed Monday, it's that you still got up Tuesday and you did it on Tuesday, right? So it's the keep going, it's the see what's working, see what to move forward. It didn't go as planned for that first 6 months. Okay, let's sit down, let's look at how it went, and let's see how we can realign and readjust for the next 6 months.
For the and, we have 6 months that are gone, and we cannot get those back. We cannot
Mhm.
change how we showed up January to the end of May, but we still have 6 months ahead of
Yes.
us. And so
Yeah.
I know last week we both shared that this data on this scale was
Mhm.
more than what we had, um, been working for or what we had wanted. And, I think you had talked about habit tracking last week too. And we can look at, we may not have the exact stats to do a full habit tracker. Like for me, I didn't keep track of enough to solidify habits, um,
Mhm.
or how I showed up for them percentage wise. But I also am not blind to what I have done and what I you know what I mean? It's not like just because I don't have it written down doesn't mean that I didn't see it and I don't know what I've done. So in looking at that, I know the areas that I can adjust as I go forward in the next 6 months from looking at what I've done. And I know
Mhm.
that my last 6 months were full of overeats because I was definitely emotionally overeating. I was eating, out of boredom and out of fear, and, it's so now, like, I'm aware of that, so how can I show up better in the next 6 months? I also know that my water was not on
Mhm.
point, so how have I shown and I think I messaged you, there was one day I drank all the water I had intended. It was the first time I had more than 64 ounces of water in a day in over probably 2 months.
Yes, that's so good though that you did it. And that's what matters is that it's kind of like even when we say 6 months and I'm going to look at the next 6 months, that can also be overwhelming for people. And this is just a moment to take when you sit down and look at it. It's not that you have to every day keep thinking about 6 months. It's just taking a pause to look, okay, I'm at this weight. So if I want it to be further, let me look back at how I made those choices in those 6 months and what can I kind of work on now as a habit. And one thing that I am putting into effect is really telling myself every moment is a choice, right? It goes back to my thing that I always talk about choices. I just can't help it, but it's true. So today I'll give an example. I'm was home and I had my breakfast, I had it a little later, and then I was starting to feel hungry and I was like, "Ooh, those marshmallows look good." And I literally picked up the bag of marshmallows to have one. And I stopped and I thought, okay, I could have a marshmallow, or I could realize I probably need food. And I made a turkey burger instead. And that's what I did. I put back the marshmallows. And it wasn't like this big grandiose, like I had to have this whole chat with myself, but it was, I saw what I was doing, I questioned it, and I made a decision. And that's that. And I felt good about that decision. There might be a day I do choose to have the marshmallow, but in that moment, I think we have to remember, like, we want to look at a whole period of time as we're discussing the 6 months. Let's look at this
Yeah.
past half of the year, and then after you write down, like, okay, this is what went well, this is what I want to work on, then you just take it moment by moment. The next
Mhm.
moment, I'll have another decision and choice to make. It's in those moments of the day where we will get to maybe dinner time. And what if I did eat the marshmallows, right? And I get to dinner time, like, well, I had the marshmallows anyway, so I might as well have the extra helping of pasta or whatever. That's another choice at that moment to say, "Okay, I did have the marshmallows at lunch, so now I'm gonna choose to not have an extra helping at dinner," or whatever, or not have pasta, or however you want to adjust, or so you can still feel good, but it's not making it a all or nothing situation, I guess is what I'm trying to explain.
And the all or nothing, I mean, you know my love of ice cream, and I have been eating a pint of Ben& and Jerry's ice cream just about every night, and I had talked to you about using a small bowl, and it is just a small choice that is moving me forward from what, like, I still want that ice cream, but this week, because I know how I have shown up this past several months with ice cream, but this week I made just a different choice to serve in a small bowl at one meal, and then I challenged myself because I do like to eat out I do like to eat out of that pint, I just do.
Mhm,
But, there are certain markings on the pint that you could this is what I did, I said, "Today, this is where you'll eat to." And, I decided and I gave myself permission, and I did
mhm,
well because I think our brains and do so well when we give ourselves permission to, just like you said, make the choice. Like, that was my decision, and I showed up for myself. And last night I had said I was going to this line at the bottom, and I heard my brain say, "Well, there's only a little bit left. Why don't we just finish it?" And in that moment, I got to say, "No, you know what? I'll have it tomorrow." And like you said, it feels good when
mhm.
you make just those small choices.
Yeah, and it's also setting it up in a different way in your brain, right? So you could hear like, eat it in a smaller dish. That's the right thing to do. So that's why you automatically thought, I'll start eating it in a smaller dish, right? But then you thought, hey, I like eating it out of the container. How can I do this so I'm getting the enjoyment that I want, which is part of it is eating out of the container for you, which is that's great.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, I'll make a line on there and that's when I stop. So it just is another example of how you really want to listen to your own body and needs and your own emotion and needs and your own thoughts of what will work for you. So it's really a great moment that you did for yourself that you're like, I really want to eat out of the container. How can I make that work for me and still honor the size of the amount that I want to eat?
Mhm.
So it's always just tuning in and tapping into you and what will work for you. And I think because you didn't have the pressure of, oh, I have to put it in this small bowl and this, that, and the other, you were doing it the way you wanted to. So when that moment came that you thought about eating more, it was much easier to be like, nah, I'm good. I'll have that other portion tomorrow because you weren't already feeling like you were doing something you had to do. You did something you wanted to do in a way that you wanted to do it for you.
Yes, yeah,
Mhm,
and I think and that's another good point, like, when we come to the end of this first half of the year, we can look back at that half of the year, and if we didn't get the results that we were going for, we can look at it as a failure and be upset, or we can take the time to, remind ourselves, like, I like to eat ice cream out of the container because that is enjoyable for me. So what in the last 6 months did you do toward your goal that was enjoyable and had you wanting to move forward in a way that felt good? So remember those things, and then we are going to focus on the things that we didn't show up perfectly for in whether it's the last 6 months or our entire lives. Like, our brains are so used to going toward those negative emotions or those negative thoughts. So I'm not saying that how you didn't show up the way you wanted to in the last 6 months should be ignored, but I don't think that they should also be a reason to beat yourself up and, like, I'm failing." So, when we all take a look back and, look at how we showed up in the last 6 months, look at the things that we didn't show up perfectly for, and I think I have allowed myself for me to be like, I understand it. It doesn't feel great that I'm not where I want to be, and I could have shown up differently, but it doesn't mean I failed in the last 6 months or the last year or whatever time frame. So now take those things that I didn't show up perfectly with, and how can I tweak them going forward to show up better for myself in the next 6 months?
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think too, when we say to ourselves, I didn't do enough or I didn't try hard enough, I wonder if those thoughts are coming from ourselves or from what we think other people might be thinking about our efforts. So like if you're feeling like it could be your spouse, it could be your friends, it could be your family, whoever you're thinking might be thinking about what you're doing, that's playing a part in your judgment of your efforts or not efforts, or however you want to approach it. So I always am trying to now ask myself, like, if nobody was around and I made this decision, how would I feel about it if there was no potential society judgments or people who know me judgments? And that's really what I've been working on, is really listening to how I feel about things and what I'm choosing to do. And I've noticed that when I'm doing this, so we have these things that we're told are good, right? Anywhere you look, drink water, get sleep, all of these things that they tell you to do. And I am now really paying attention on the days that I don't drink a certain amount of water, I genuinely don't feel good. So it's so much like I've been told, okay, yes, but I actually have found that on the days I drink 80 ounces or more are the days that I feel my best. I don't get as tired. I'm not as hungry in terms of snacky, urgy stuff. So I've picked up on that. I definitely have learned the amount of sleep that I need, all of these things, but I think we can hear the suggestions and then we work on them ourselves and find out what works for us. So, like, okay, so for example, we were talking before we got on the call. I was working with a coach for the beginning of the year since January about maintaining my weight and learning more about calories and macros and how to balance a day of nutrition. So from January till about mid-April, I was like really good at everything I was supposed to be doing, kind of on point with everything. But even with me saying on point, it doesn't mean there weren't days that I didn't hit the target or there were days that I didn't go over calories, because I absolutely did. But over the course of the months and the days and weeks, consistent wise, I did. So I did maintain my weight as we were trying to achieve. So that was really great. And then emotions of my mom with Mother's Day and her anniversary of her 5 years being gone came up. My emotional eating absolutely increased, as did the weight on the scale. I really practiced compassion for myself this year in terms of just doing what I felt I needed to do on that day. I would always start with a plan. I would always start with the best of intentions for a day. Some days I was successful. Some days I had more struggles. Some days I overate. Some days I underate. It just was different days for whatever I was going through on that day. So I told myself that I was just going to get through the month the best I could, end the month, weigh in, and then move forward, like assess and see what I needed to do to move forward. And so I am up from the beginning of January, I'm up 4 pounds from the beginning of January.
Yeah.
Some people might think that is not success. I personally feel that it is because I know that if I wasn't even making those efforts every day, whether I was successful or not in the terms of like staying on plan specific, I would have gained more. And the compassion that I was giving for myself let me get up every day to try again because I didn't have the judgment of how I handled the day before.
And there is so much because you did get so much learning in that 6 months, whether the there's so much that you took away from working with her
Yes.
that will move you forward, and
Mhm.
one of the things that you just said, "If no one else's opinion mattered, what would be my choice?" And that is another thing we talked about before. Like, I have a lot of thoughts that are in my head from growing up the way that I did. And so we were having a discussion about sneakers before we got on this call. And I have thoughts about wearing sneakers outside of the house. And they are thoughts that came from my childhood. And if nobody else's opinion mattered, would I wear them? Yes, but it's the thought in my head that has me not wearing them. But more than anything, when I step out that door, nobody's going to look at my sneakers and think, oh, look, she's wearing sneakers. Or do you know what I mean? I think sometimes we think people think about us far more than they really do, or that they are forming an opinion about us. And so I think that if no that it's a question we can ask for everything, whether it's our eating, our exercising, what we're wearing, what we're doing, you know, it all comes down to us and our awareness of what we need to support ourselves through compassion and our choices and just how we want to move forward when at the end of the day, we go to bed with ourselves. Yes, we may have a partner in bed with us, but we are the ones laying there in the quiet and the stillness. And it is us who is assessing our day and our lives. And how do we want to do that with compassion for what we've learned and what we've been through, and use that compassion to move us forward?
Yes, I agree with that. I also like the other aspect of what if they are judging you? Like if you walk out of the house with your sneakers. I've really worked on because I lived most of my life so far always worrying about what other people were thinking.
Mm,
I've have lost nights of sleep over was somebody upset over what I said here? Did I look wrong there? Whatever. And this is something I worked on because it really is all kind of like made up of I don't know what the right word is, but it's like made up in our head because say somebody did have a thought about that, you most likely won't know, right?
yeah,
There might be a time where somebody might say something, but likelihood is they won't know. They might look at you and say, "Oh, why is she wearing that?" But they're going to move on in their day. So I'm not going to say I'm innocent of having thoughts. But I think we all do have thoughts, but
absolutely.
the thing of it is, it's your own perception and thought about yourself and your choices that matters. And if there's people in your life that disagree with them or have something to say about it, I think it's important to ask, do you agree with everything they do? And does it matter? Like they're still making their choices, right? I think there's people in our lives that might do things that we might not think are necessarily the best for them or that we think we could give them better advice, but they're making choices that make them happy and they're not really staying up at night wondering what April's thinking or what Debbie's thinking about their choices, right? They're
No,
just doing them. And I think it's so important for us to realize that it really is about what makes us feel okay, and if you're not okay with your choices, like, if you are really some of us will feel, because 'cause I've been in this level too in previous years, really beating yourself up over decisions or not losing enough weight or not moving enough or whatever you feel like you should be doing, and I'm just inviting you to think about how you would talk to a family member or a sister or a daughter or a mother, whoever, a friend, whoever you're very close with, and if you saw them struggling, what would you say to them? And we hear this a lot, but it's really so true because compassion gets so much more positive after effects than negative. Some people really like there's always different types of trainers. Like when you watch TV shows, I don't know if you ever watched them in the past. Different types of trainers. There's going to be a trainer who's going to scream at you and call you names to get you going. And then there's going to be the other trainer like, you're doing a good job, keep it up. Different trainers for different people, right? So some people might want to be hard on themselves and it might be productive for them. That's where you are having to tune into who you are and what works for you. It always goes back to that. I am not that person. I am much more a person who thrives in positive feedback and let's look at what we can do better and whatever. But it doesn't mean the other way is wrong either. You just want
Right.
to really talk to yourself and open up that conversation to yourself. I do invite you to think about how you talk to yourself because it plays such a big role in it. And I'm just like Debbie said in the beginning, the 6 months, the first half of the year is gone. So if you're sitting there right now and you're thinking, I've already blown 6 months of the year, what's the point? Point is that you still have a second half to play. If anybody's into sports, football, right? You still have a second half to play. This is halftime. And you can sit there and you can look at what didn't work in those plays and you can come up with new strategies for the next half.
And I took from I don't remember which podcast episode it was that you mentioned this, but it was about taking time, like finding time to do things. And this morning, one of the things that I had committed to you, outside of this is accountability, is that I wanted to have intentional movement, 20 minutes, 3 days this week. And I have found little pockets of time that I haven't done it 20 minutes consistently, and so this morning, it's Friday, right? And I got Friday, Saturday, and I haven't done it. And I thought to myself, well, I could have, I, I didn't do it, forget it. But then I thought, you know what? As I'm getting ready, I did 10 squats, I did 10 calf raises. Is that what it's called? I did
Mhm.
like 5 sets of different exercises, just 10 reps each. To some people, they'd be like, well, that's not 20 minutes. And that's really not that much. But I met myself where I am today, and
Mhm.
it's more than I have done in the last several weeks, months, um, and it was what made me feel like it wasn't 20 minutes, it wasn't what I committed to, but it was what I could do today, and tomorrow, it's something else I could do again tomorrow because it was easy, and it wasn't I didn't have to set out a big set of space of time, and I think as we move forward into the second half of the year, I think it's important that people do not be like, "Oh, I lost the first half, now I've gotta double down." If you
Mhm.
say you have to double down or you put too much on your plate, you're not gonna want to do it, and so you'll run out of steam because you're trying to run so fast to make up, and we can't make
Mhm.
up that time. What we have is this moment and the next moment and the next moment if we are lucky enough to have those. So let's use what we have now and in front of us with and I guess sometimes we don't need to be all fired excited to go after everything, but let's move forward with compassion and with the choice to show up how we want to in the next 6 months. And so when you look back at the first half of the year, and I know you talked about what you've learned, what will you take from what you've learned that will help you move forward, April, this next month, this next 6 months?
For me, I think um definitely the compassion part I'm going to carry through. I've seen so much just in changing my binging habits and all of that. They're just so far few between because like I said in the previous podcast, I've really approached it with having compassion for those and asking myself what was triggering, what did I really need? Kind of like even with the marshmallows today, I was grabbing marshmallows because I didn't stop and think that I was hungry. I just saw marshmallows like, ooh. But then as I took them, I was like, do I really want these or am I hungry? Like it was a conversation. So just continue the conversations. And also for me with the coach that I worked with for the first half of the year, those lessons with her were really invaluable to me. I do tend to have urges throughout the day at work and wanting to eat or whatever, but a lot of times now they aren't as prevalent or strong as often with the drinking of my water, with the balancing of my meals. That has really been helpful for me. So I'm absolutely going to continue that moving forward and still working on getting more sleep. Being more consistent with going to bed early. I've talked about that before in previous podcasts as well. That's still something I'm working on. I definitely have a list of things that I want to work on and coming up with different plans to do so, like setting the timer on my phone and talking to Kevin about, let's go to bed at this time tonight, stuff like that. So I think that each day it's really important to just think of like, what can I focus on today? So today I'm home. My biggest focus is making sure that I drink my water because at home I tend to not drink as much as when I'm at work.
Yeah. Those
What
sound
about
like
you?
all good
Yeah,
things.
thanks. And what about yourself?
So definitely water. And one of the things that I have noticed in our move out here is how much I have allowed to thoughts to influence my decisions
Mm,
and whether they're healthy or not. But I have a lot of stories, and those stories, I think, when I tell stories that don't they're not good stories for my soul, I tend to eat.
mm,
Because it's just it comforts me. And
mm.
so I would like to be I want to be more in touch with myself and my thoughts and what is going through my mind to just say, "Hey, is this true or is this something that you have carried with you?" And I think some people may wonder how that can help you with moving forward toward your goals. And it does, because if we understand why we're eating, if we're not eating because we're hungry, we're solving for something else. And I know for me, I solve pain a lot with food. So I want to really work on that with some journaling some more, and definitely water. And I want to move my body, not not as a reward to have more food. I want to move my body because it feels good. And I like how when I am walking or if I'm doing some strength training, just how my body feels. She appreciates it. So I'd like to do things that support me emotionally as well as physically.
Oh, that's so great. As you were talking too, I was thinking of something I recently did. So every week, I make a menu plan and I put it on the fridge. And I thought, well, why don't I have a menu plan for the other things I want to do instead of eating? And I thought about that when you talk about emotionally eating. So I've written some down, but I was thinking, oh, maybe I should put that on the fridge too, or at work at my desk or something. Like I've come up with a list, like I can do art, or I can go for a walk, or take a shower, or whatever things that I put on there. I can't remember all of them, but um, maybe that's something too that you could think of, that like, you know, ice cream and alternative ice cream, dairy free ice cream options.
And what a great idea that is, because you could so I know I go to the freezer to get the ice cream. I could have the options list of
Yes.
what other choices I could make right on the freezer, and not as like not a list as a punishment, but a list of a reward. Like, these things also make you feel good. These things,
Yeah, and you could even write the list with the ice cream being an option. Like
yeah,
I feel like there are going to be times every human does it, whether it's birthdays, holiday, like you're going to eat because it's a celebration. It's not always negative emotions, right? That's just emotionally eating is going to happen at some point, right? So having compassion that if I'm choosing ice cream, that's okay too. But you could put ice cream to whatever line, and then you could put the other options underneath it. It would give you a pause that if you saw that on the freezer, and you would think, do I want that? And always try to put options that sound fun and easy. Like, do not put options that are like, I'm going to write a poem or like
I'm gonna
something
clean the
that would,
bathroom. I
I'm going to
mean,
clean the bathroom or do,
yeah,
yeah, make it super easy. I'm going to call my friend. I'm going to send a Marco Polo. I really like going out for like today I needed a break from what I was doing. And we did a lot of gardening last weekend. And so we have a lot of flowers out in our backyard. And I just went outside and I just walked around the flowers and looked at them and smelled the roses. I know it's a cliche, but we have rose bushes. So I smelled the flowers and it just was just what I needed to get back in the house to do what I was doing. And find ways that will take you maybe out of the environment and give you something else, right? So thinking of those things that work for you that are also fun and attractive, and put them on the list on the fridge or freezer.
and I think I noticed that I have set the alarm for every night when the sun is supposed to set, and I run right out the front door and I watch the sunset, and it is around our normal snack dessert time, and it is, like you said, it's the pause to take me away from that. So, and you're right, it needs to be something that is just nice, so, and not hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last couple of weeks, we have talked about subjects that were important to us, but really, we love doing this podcast for all of you, and we would love to hear what you would like us to talk about. Nothing is off limits. We are pretty open with our stories and our journeys. So, what is it that you are working on that we might be able to talk about that might help move you forward? We'd love to hear. You can comment in our Facebook page, April and Debbie Dish the Truth on Weight Loss. You can email us at April and Debbie Dish the Truth on wait, no, April and Debbie Dish the Truth at gmail.com.
Yes.
Any other ways they can get DM us? I mean,
Anyway, yep.
yeah.
Email and Facebook is really great, or the DMing is great too on Facebook.
We're here to help and support you. And I just want to encourage you. I've got my love unites us and with my flowers. So keep blooming and keep growing to where you want to go.
Yes. And as always, remember, wake up willing to do something that feels good to you.
Have a great day.
Bye.